Hey, everybody. This is Eric J. Olson, your host for this episode of the Managing Partners Podcast, where we interview America's top managing partners to find out how they are running their law firms and what they are doing to grow them as well. And today from Minnesota, Michael Bryant. Hey, Michael.
Good day. How are you today?
Fantastic. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. Let me tell the audience a little bit about you. So Michael Bryant is the managing partner of Bradshaw and Bryant, PLLC, where he devotes his practice to representing clients suffering from minor, serious, and catastrophic injuries. Mr. Bryant has extensive experience negotiating with insurance companies, as well as litigating personal injury and wrongful death claims throughout Minnesota. Once again, thanks for joining me for the show.
Thank you for having me on.
You got it. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and the firm?
Yeah, Bradshaw and Bryant was created in like the late 80s by John Bradshaw. I joined him in 1991. I was sworn in on a Friday and I was in court on Monday morning. The firm went from Bradshaw Law Office to Bradshaw and Bryant, and then Bradshaw and Bryant PLLC, and then John retired. Now I've got 6 lawyers that work for me. We've got 9 paralegals. We work primarily in plaintiff's personal injury. We also do some criminal defense. I have 1 full-time criminal defense lawyer and a couple of us that still do it. My first appearance was a criminal appearance back on that Monday morning, right after the Twins won. I drove out to central Minnesota on a case. And basically that's what we do, is primarily plaintiff's personal injury, representing people who are injured to the fault of no fault of their own, and I do cases all over the state. I've been in all but 9 counties in courts in the state, in counties, and I've tried cases in all but 13 of the counties.
Oh wow! So 30 years of experience, all at one law firm. I am sure that you have seen quite a bit of change. What's it been like to witness the change? Like what are some big things that have changed really in the firm? I mean, I'm sure technology, of course, has changed, but like in the firm, did you always start off doing personal injury and criminal law, or did you do other practice areas as well?
No, we've always done that. What the biggest change, when I started, there was 2 lawyers and there were 2 paralegals and 1 front desk person. That front desk person did phone calls, did scheduling, did filing. And now I have a person whose job is filing and a person whose job is scheduling. So the biggest changes is how it's grown in that direction. Just have gone from, 2 lawyers that were doing, the work we did. In Minnesota, we have something called no fault law, which is basically paying people's medical bills and wage loss after a car collision that comes from their own insurance company. Not all states have that, but we have that. I'd done a lot of that kind of work as a law clerk, working for a personal injury firm as a law clerk. And so when I came in, we started doing tons of that. And now I have a full-time paralegal whose only job is to work on no faults.
Nice. That's great. Yeah, it's interesting how you talked about how the company has morphed and the positions have changed. And as a bigger company, you have different roles than you did at a smaller company, people wearing multiple hats at a smaller company. And one structure does not work for the different size companies at all, does it?
No. And that's making the decisions on expanding and how you expand with employees on top of just lawyers.
One of the things that we hear from managing partners a lot is how to get new cases. It seems to be a pretty big common concern. It's something we talk about a lot on the podcast. Referrals are usually top of the list. Besides referrals, what are some different ways that you go about getting new cases?
We do a lot of radio advertising. So we've been involved in radio for probably 15, 16, 17 years. And that's had a big impact. That's done a lot towards branding the name, because what's crazy about personal injury or criminal defense is, your advertising isn't to everybody. It's basically, it is to everybody, but it's only to certain people at certain times. So you need to brand your name so that they think of you in that short period of time after something happens, so they come to you and get help from you at that point. So you're shooting at a bunch of people with the idea that there's only a couple of them that'll be impacted, and hoping that works out.
Yeah. Are you doing also like internet advertising?
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
some internet advertising, and we have the big thing with the internet advertising, or the internet overall, was real early. I came to the understanding that you don't need a ton of traffic to your website. There isn't any reason 1,000 people are going to come to my website.
Yeah.
So many of the internet providers that don't really understand what we do come to you with these ideas of getting all this traffic to your website. I don't need that, because I don't have games or giveaways at my website that anybody go, hey, let's go look at that website. So what you need is that certain number of visits. So that's really what you need. And then converting those visits into people coming for a reason and converting them into cases. That's the key. So you don't, if you get 25 visits to your website a day and 2 or 3 of those convert to some sort of question that may be a case, that's all you need, depending on your size. But that's all you don't need that giant thing that a lot of marketers in the internet try to convince you of, because we're not selling widgets. There's sometimes I think it'd be the greatest thing in the world for just 1 year to go sell widgets, because I'd be really good at it.
It's funny. The gym that I go to, there's like 4 desks right when you walk in. And it's all the salespeople, and I always think, man, I would love that job, because you just sit around and people walk in, and all you got to really do is show them around and close them. And I'm like, oh, that must be so nice, Yeah, not quite the same in a law firm. Well, so I do agree with you that you don't need a ton of traffic, especially if it's not the right traffic. But what you do want is good traffic, right? Relevant traffic, where they're potentially searching for a keyword that's relevant to you, like car accident, Minnesota, and then they come to your website. That right there is really, really good traffic. Backing up to radio, it's interesting that that you're doing radio and the approach. Like on the one hand, a lot of brand awareness, which is always good. I tend to think that people have a difficult time recalling the name of a firm that advertises. So like if they get hurt and they have to think, and they don't have a computer by them, they may not think of the firm that advertises a lot. They remember someone advertises. Who was it? I can't remember, but they can recognize it, right? So they'll go to the internet, they'll search for a car accident lawyer, Minnesota, up pops the list. And I believe the goal is to have your name up there, and then they recognize you from your history, from your brand awareness campaigns. And when they recognize you, they're like, oh yeah, I do remember these people. I'm going to click on this link, go to their website, find out more. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's true. It's one of the reasons why there's certain things, and I learned a lot more about radio than I ever thought when I was in law school. I never knew I'd have to take an education in radio, but it's part of the reason why we use the same bricks all the time. There's certain keywords we use all the same time. I did not want a jingle, but we got a jingle, and it's worked really well, and people sing it. One of the kind of neatest tweets I got one time was, I got this tweet in the middle of a Friday night saying that someone had fallen off a bar stool, and other people in the bar started singing our jingle. Which, that's not a case.
I mean, funny, but not funny.
One of those that you think, wow, that people could sing it. And the person who wrote our jingle does concerts around, and sometimes he'll sing jingles at the concerts, and people will sing along to our jingle. So that's helped with that. It's not just a commercial, it's how we put the commercial together, and how we've continuously gone with the same voice, same taglines, same parts to make that work, so that we do get that name recognition that you're talking about.
I think that's great. Consistency, right? Consistency over time is great. The same jingle for a long time, maybe not forever. You may want to change it up every 5-10 years, but for a long time, stick with it, the same tagline. And that way people see it, they hear it over and over again, and they get used to it. That's a really good story about the bar and the fact that like people started to break out and sing the jingle. That's really interesting. How are you going about handling your marketing right now? Are you doing it like in-house? You've mentioned a couple of different people you work with, the radio folks, the jingle person. Do you kind of have like a collection of people?
I've still, I tend to do stuff on relationships and knowing people. So I've still done a lot of the writing on commercials, or I do blogs that they then turn into commercials. And so I'm pretty hands-on as far as it goes. I mean, there's places you could buy that would get you the best rate every single week or every single month in radio all the time.
Yeah.
I tend to go with longer contracts and not worry about that kind of stuff. And it's cost money at times, but the reality is it's worked for me, and I'm willing to do it along those lines. So it's primarily been more in my own hands and more my own type of ideas, working with people versus having a managing person or a person that runs it.
Oh, great. That's awesome. So what is something that's working well right now in your marketing? You mentioned the radio, and you've been doing that for a long time. Is that one of the better performing marketing tactics for you?
Yeah, I would say radio is the biggest or the biggest thing that we do as far as marketing goes. If we get away from just the idea of referrals, but it's that marketing, and I think it's being there for people. If people are going down the phone book or going down the internet, they'll call down the list, and if they don't get hold of somebody right away, they'll call the next person. One of the things I added a year and a half ago was a lawyer whose job it is to call all the people back, because as much as I wanted to call people back, you get busy, you're in trial, you're in depositions, you're in this or that. I didn't know COVID was coming, which probably gave me more time, but you can't just call back all the time. And so I'd go a day without getting back to them. And so you'd lose people that way. And then you see with that, there's certain people that come from like certain radio stations or certain reasons why they call us. They'll be mad when you call them, but they'll wait for you to call them back. So it's kind of figuring out where they come from, how strong of a referral or a basis it is, and then also getting to them as quick as possible so that we can help them. Because there's people who have gone from 0 to 100. They suddenly need help right now, and they're worried about their wage loss. They're worried about their property damage. They're worried about all these things they need help with right now, and it's getting them that help right now, which is important.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, people are impatient the moment that they need that service, the moment that they decide that they're going to reach out to a lawyer. They're not like, especially if they don't know how long they need to wait, right? So if I were to be heard in Minnesota and I contacted you and I left a voicemail as an example, or I left a message and no one told me when I should expect to call back, guess what? I want to keep calling because I'm not going to wait around, right? So I think it's incredibly important, just like you. Number one, that you're easy to get a hold of, right? So I have a brand new client. I can't get through to them on their phone number, the published phone number. I call and the call gets disconnected every single time. So I have to get their cell phone, and that's not good for business. So we're going to be correcting that right away. But once you get through, if you can have someone answer the phone, a real human, and even after hours, maybe pay for like after hours receptionist, it's worth it. People want to talk to a human whenever possible. And then, like you said, follow up very quickly with urgency. If you can do it within 15 minutes, which I know to a lot of people that are listening right now or watching probably sounds absurd, but if you could get back to them that quick, it's really going to improve your chances. And I've seen studies where it's hundreds of % increases in closing cases if you respond within 15 minutes versus 15 hours.
Yep. Yeah. I think that all makes sense. And it's dealing with that need right off the bat when they need it.
Yeah. So I asked you what's working well. What about on the flip side? What is something that isn't working quite as well now as it used to?
Well, and this is kind of one of those things. As much as I'm glad phone books are gone, so that there's not that regular buying phone books and the back page and whatever you buy or the big ads. The one thing that I miss about that is when you bought the back of a phone book, you were on it for a year. Nobody went in and ripped it off and replaced it with somebody else. I mean, there might be one or two that did that, but overall it didn't happen. So the one thing I don't like overall about the internet is how much it changes all the time. So it's like this daily battle or this weekly battle of being on top, and then suddenly you're not on top, and then Google changes everything. So you need to stay with people that are staying up on what's happening with Google,
Yeah.
because this is important today, and the next week that's not important, something else is important. And so the thing I haven't liked, and this may be twisting your question a little bit, but is that part of it, because it's so unpredictable, and so you don't get what you pay for, because it changes and it's something else, and then you got to pay for something else or do it in a different way. So that part of it I haven't liked. That would probably be the thing that comes to mind as far as the biggest goes. Number of times I've wasted money on different things, because I would say it's very important to make sure the person who's selling you what they're selling knows what they're selling and understands what they're selling. We saw, as much as I love phone book people, there were a lot of phone book people that went into other things that really didn't understand what they were selling. Yeah. So they thought, well, I can just sell it because I sold these other things, but they didn't understand their product. And so you end up in these things that they tell you are certain things. Then once you look into them, they're not even close to what they think that they're selling.
You made several very good points on the last part about the folks in traditional advertising moving into digital marketing. We see that a lot, and especially with TV, radio, the coupons that get mailed out, the billboards. They a lot of them, these local advertisers, which are usually part of a national conglomerate, but the local folks, they go to their existing client base and they also do digital now. And that makes me nervous. Like, we're a full-time digital marketing agency. And so it makes me nervous for their clients, frankly, because that's not their business. Their business is to put giant posters up in the air, or to, man the printing presses, or to get those, TV commercials or radio commercials out. That's their business. And then digital is like this add-on. And it's very difficult sometimes for them to compete if they don't have a dedicated digital marketing team, in my opinion. But then again, I'm in this business and we're full-time. And for me, at least, it's important because, for the reasons you talked about, it changes all the time. Like, almost on a daily basis, there is some big news about digital marketing, in particular Google or Facebook, which is also Instagram, sometimes to a lesser degree LinkedIn, Twitter, but there's big changes. Apple and Google going at it over privacy. Like, that's a massive change for digital advertising. Like, it had a profound impact on a lot of people that were spending millions of dollars a day on advertising. So if you're not keeping up with these things, you could be wasting a whole lot of money. And it's a full-time job just to keep up with one of those narrow niches within digital marketing, never mind the whole spectrum. So I could not agree with you more. I think you're absolutely right. It's exhausting. It's a full-time job.
I know. And it's not something you learned when you started. Talking about that, the other thing I'd add is you need to make sure, if you go into digital marketing, to find out what ads are being used to get information. Because, you can get lots of calls from certain ads. If you got barking dogs or a big check or boxing gloves, you can get people that'll call. Half of them will be not good leads. Second, the big thing for me is we try lots of cases, or did before we got shut down for a while with COVID. But I try about 5 to 7 cases a year. And so what's important about that is, jurors go and look at you, or they know what you're advertising. And if you're connected to an ad that you look at and think, that's not me, or, I'm sure that got calls, but that's not what I'm doing. And, if other people want to do that, that's fine. I just can't go in front of a juror that won't look at that and think, well, you're just a scumbag, because, that won't work. And so you got to watch what it is that's being used, because there's well-meaning people out there who think, oh yeah, this is great, I'll do this to get you more calls. But if it's not something that's consistent with what you believe or what you stand for, that can cause you bigger problems down the road.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're talking about, like, the company's brand, the personal brand, and it needs to be aligned with your actual belief systems and those of the jurors, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That's a really good point. And especially in personal injury, because a lot of times, probably in every city where there's personal injury lawyers, there's that one, right, that's over the top with, like, explosions and gorillas and everything else, right?
Yeah.
Well, awesome. What are your growth plans for the next couple of years?
Well, trying to get back on track in the sense of getting back with we've got a really big backlog on trials in Minnesota. So trying to get back on track so that we have that leveling idea of where we're sitting once we start getting back into court. Because once we get trials rolling again, I think we're going to start getting pressure from judges to help them get their backlog done. So it's getting through all that. So the growth plan is as much a plan of trying to make sure we maintain where we're at and we get through all the stuff that's behind us. And at the same time, making sure we look out and reach out for those opportunities for, the cases that are out there. More people are out on the roads. Minnesota passed a great law where, you couldn't have your cell phone in your hands. And during the whole shutdown, people forgot about it. So we have cell phones like crazy and back in people's hands, even though it was heading in the right direction for a while. So there's all these things out there that we try to, deal with. And unfortunately, we have clients that are injured as a result of, but that's the, getting those messages out to people because there's always new people coming along.
Good for you. That's awesome. Well, if someone has a question for you, or maybe they would like to refer a case to you, what is a good way for them to get in touch with you?
Sure. It's Minnesota. Our website is minnesotapersonalinjury.com, minnesotapersonalinjury.com, all spelled out. And then our office number is 800-770-7008.
By the way, I love your domain name. I think that is fantastic. You've had it for a little while, haven't you?
We've had it a long time. And I kind of just stumbled on it by accident. It was open and I bought it. And I even bought it long before I even knew the importance of it.
Oh, good for you. All right, everybody, go check out the website, minnesotapersonalinjury.com. Great domain name. I love it. If you are looking for other episodes like this with managing partners from across the country, check out our website at arraylaw.com/podcast. Every episode is tagged by the practice area and the state, and you can drill down and find exactly what you're looking for. And if you're looking for digital marketing for your law firm, consider my company, Array Digital. You can find out more at arraylaw.com. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.